If you've followed my channel for any number of years, you know that I love Final Fantasy Tactics and have been waiting for a new entry for years. And earlier this week, there was a Nintendo Direct announced, the first one we've seen since 2019, I believe. And, people were asking, like, what are your predictions? And so my safe prediction, which didn't even end up coming true, was I'm hoping for a Rune Factory 5 release date for the West. And then my joke prediction was, or my dream prediction was, let's get a Final Fantasy Tactics HD collection and a Final Fantasy Tactics sequel to the original game. And what do we know? We finally got that in the form of Project Triangle Strategy. Now, obviously this isn't exactly Final Fantasy Tactics, but I feel like this is the closest we're ever gonna get. I mean, the fact that Square Enix even acknowledged that people want a new strategy RPG from them is big news, so I'm as happy as I could possibly be with that. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about why I'm so hyped for Project Triangle Strategy and share my impressions of the demo. So if you enjoy games like Final Fantasy Tactics and Project Triangle Strategy, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. So it's been 23 years since the original PS1 release of Final Fantasy Tactics and over 13 years since the PSP re-release, War of the Lions. Now, of course, we did have the two advanced games that people like to always point out, and I haven't had a chance to play them yet, but they're just different. They're more kiddie, they have all these weird laws. It's not quite the same. Now, of course, we have had other strategy RPGs like Tactics Ogre, Let Us Cling Together, and the Fire Emblem series, but to me, they never quite stood up to Final Fantasy Tactics. It never really was exactly what I was looking for, and I never understood why Square Enix never made another one, especially now when the genre is as big as it's ever been. And what I really liked about Final Fantasy Tactics is that it did things that other games in the genre just weren't doing, like the job system where you can mix and match abilities and really make your ultimate team. That was just so much fun. And also, I feel like it had really well-designed maps. Like, there were really interesting objectives, there were really interesting terrain, heights and variations, and cool things you could do with the environment. I feel like, just aren't in games, especially in Fire Emblem. I always felt like the maps in Fire Emblem were a little bland by comparison. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Fire Emblem. It's the series that got me back into Nintendo systems with Awakening on the 3DS. But to me, again, it just never was Final Fantasy Tactics. But now we have Project Triangle Strategy, and I couldn't be more happy. I mean, it's made by the team behind Octopath Traveler, and that's one of my all-time favorite RPGs. So I know there's a really great pedigree behind it. And just in case we didn't know if it was gonna be good or not, there was a demo that shadow dropped right after the Direct. So let me tell you about my impressions of this game, and boy, was I impressed. So from what I played with my time in the game, there were two main battles and lots of story, and there were other unique systems that aren't in any kind of strategy RPG that I've ever seen that I'll touch on in a minute. Now, the first battle has you're kind of crossing this drawbridge and you're trying to get to this point in the bridge so you could hop on a boat and escape. And before you can even fight the battle, they introduce this really cool mechanic called exploration. You're on the bridge, but you can explore the area around the bridge before you even get into a fight. So you can go down these ladders, you can find hidden items, you can talk to different characters and cheer them up, and kind of you get this system. It's kind of like a law system, or you get people kind of on your side one way or another. The scale will appear on screen, and it's kind of hidden, and you don't quite know exactly which way characters or the story is leaning, but apparently it has very big impacts throughout the game, which I'll touch on in a little bit, and we probably won't know the full scope until the full game comes out. But it was kind of interesting, like depending on how you answer characters or talk to different characters, it could impact the story, or it could impact if they are even going to be on your team later in the game. Now, obviously, it shares a lot of similarities to Final Fantasy Tactics, like how you can arrange your troops before the battle even begins, positioning, enemy weaknesses, and things like that, but there's also a lot of new and really cool mechanics. Now, the first one is not exactly new, but if you hit enemies from behind, or if you get hit from behind, it's always going to be a critical attack, which is really important to keep in mind for positioning. Like, you want to have your back against a wall, or have your back turned to a character so they can't hit you from behind. Now, there's also a lot of moves that push enemies back, or you could also get pushed back. And if you push an enemy into an allied troop, they'll do a follow-up attack. And if you surround an enemy, you have a lot higher chance of doing this. So that can also really play into the strategy, which I thought was really cool. Now, this game uses TP, which I think stands for tactical points. They didn't quite explain it very well, but basically abilities use tactical points, and they're kind of like denoted by these little diamonds on the UI. And basically, abilities use these, and you get one every turn. So if you just kind of sit there and don't do anything, you'll store up TP, and then you can use them for bigger attacks. And I kind of like this. It's not like you have to run an MP and then refresh your MP and you can't get it back. It's like, okay, if I know if I wait a turn, I can get one back and save it for a bigger your attacks. So something that might be useful for is like a big spell, or, you know, just a melee attack that does more damage. This kind of goes into what I think I loved most about this game so far, is how much information the game gives you. It gives you the turn order, you know exactly who's gonna go next. If you move, you'll know which enemies are within attack range. So if you move too far, you'll know that, hey, this enemy could hit you next turn, which again is really helpful because in a lot of strategy RPGs, you don't even get that information. You kind of just have to guess. And with this, there's no guessing. It's just, hey, here's the information, you plan out your strategy and you just have fun and you just go. And I really, really enjoy that, because so many turn-based RPGs or strategy RPGs don't give you all the information you need. And so you're kind of just guessing like, oh boy, if I move here, I hope I don't die, or I hope this guy doesn't do this, or I don't even know who goes next. So it's really, really nice to have all this information. Now at the beginning of the game, it warns you that this is gonna be a little bit harder, but I felt like the game was like really well balanced. I wouldn't say perfectly balanced, but really well balanced. You know, I had a couple troops die here and there, but that was really my fault. I was kind of being dumb at certain points, so I never thought it was super hard. And I think the other thing that's really interesting is, one, there's no permadeath like Fire Emblem, but also if a character dies, you can't revive them, they're just gone. So that really, again, plays into the strategy, another unique element to the game. But I just felt like the game had such a nice flow to it. Each character had a specified job. As far as I could tell, I messed around in the menus quite a bit, but I couldn't find the ability to switch jobs or combine job abilities or anything like that. It seemed like each character had a set job, and every time they leveled up, they would get a new ability, or every so many levels, they would get a new ability. So it seems very streamlined to just be all about the strategy, which again, I like. So one really unique element, I think something that's going to be a core feature to the game, is this voting system. So at one point in the game, there is this decision that needs to be made. You're kind of harboring this prince, and there is an army closing in on your town, and so everybody's like, okay, well, do we give him up because they are demanding him, or do we protect him and fight back? And initially, the votes are not in your favor, so you have to go around town, find information, and then come back and present it and try to persuade your allies if you're wanting to protect him. And I thought that was really, really neat. It gives you, just an opportunity to explore the town, learn some new information, and then when you go back, there's like dialogue choices that sort of unlock once you've talked to people and learned new things. I will say it's fairly straightforward. It's nothing like too fancy or anything like that. It's kind of simple, but I like it. It's enough to get you thinking and is a reprieve from the fairly dense story and the fairly dense gameplay. Now, I will say I skipped a lot of the story because I just didn't want to be spoiled. I was into the story for the first battle just so I can kind of get a sense of, is this going to be like Octopath Traveler? Is it going to be really great voice acting, a really compelling story? And it seems like it'll be pretty interesting, but I gotta say the voice acting was kind of all over the place. There were some characters that had really great voice acting I thought were done really well, and then some were like, man, that's the best take you had, or their delivery was just really, really off. Here, I'll play a clip or two here so you can see what I'm talking about.
Then what drives you to commit new ones? To tear down the future we labored so long to achieve? Do you think Hyzanth will stand idly by while Glenbrook burns?
So hopefully they can polish that up, or hopefully those aren't the final, voice lines. Maybe they can go back and fix some things, but it's not quite up to Octopath Traveler, but it's not, it could be a lot worse. So overall, I am super, super excited for Project Triangle Strategy. I've been waiting so long for a new strategy RPG from Square Enix. And now, while this isn't a Final Fantasy Tactics sequel, it's probably the closest we're ever gonna get. I mean, it looks gorgeous. It has that same Octopath Traveler style look. The music is incredible, just like Octopath Traveler. So this has instantly become my new most anticipated game. And unfortunately, we're gonna have to wait until next year to play it. But if they already have a demo out and there seems like there's a lot there, I imagine we're probably gonna get it before March. Early 2022 seems about right. But again, we'll have to stay tuned and see what's going on. But definitely let me know what you think. Did you play the demo? Are you excited about this game? Definitely leave your comments below. And if you wanna know about a really great Switch game you can play really soon, then definitely check out my review for Persona 5 Strikers. This was much more of a Persona 5 sequel than I ever expected, and I really had a lot of fun with it. And if you want even more fun JRPG videos just like this, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.